what's happening, guys? Today we're out on another mobile call. We have a 2003 Ford Expedition with a no start, no fuel pressure issue. Now, it's not a theft light issue. There's no problems with the PCM. Everything's powering up. Everything looks great. There's just no fuel pressure. We already tested the fuel pressure on the Schrader valve there. 0. You listen for the pump, the 2-second prime upon key turn on. Nothing. So the next thing you got to do is verify the power and ground in the current can get back to the fuel pump. If it never powers up, it's never going to fuel and it's never going to pump, and of course it'll never start. So today we're going to show you how to test those powers and grounds going back to the fuel pump that's under the vehicle in the tank without ever leaving the passenger side footwell area here. It's a quick trick you can do, a test you can do to verify everything from this point on back is working, including the fuel pump. And of course, if the engine starts, you know everything in the engine, the PCM is fine. And then also we're going to show you how to test for a failing fuel pump relay like this one has. It can get misdiagnosed quite often because people don't load test. So today we're going to walk you through it and show you exactly how to do it. Okay, now when I talk about the fuel pump 2-second prime, what happens is every time you turn this key on to the on position, the fuel pump relay turns on and it primes the fuel pump down below for 2 seconds, no matter what. Every time you turn it on. So you do it every time, you should do it for 2 seconds. Now what you can do to listen for that, be very evident the fuel pump is coming on, is have someone else down below there listening to it while you're up here turning it on. Wait 2 seconds, turn it off, turn it on, and you just listen for it down there. Now also, as you can see here, the thing has no fuel pressure, so it's a no start situation. So what I can do on the IDS here, let me focus in on that, is connect up to it. Okay, now what I can do, of course, is monitor the fuel level input, means that we're connected back there to the fuel pump, but I also can turn on the fuel pump at will, I guess you could say. So I can go ahead, take control of that, over here you see, and turn it on. And you can see I got toggle it on and off. Okay. Now what's good about this is I can go down to the junction box down here and listen. Now what this tests by turning this on and off is, of course, I can audibly hear the fuel pump relay internally is coming on, okay? And that tells me the command circuit and the driver inside of the PCM works. So it's sending the command out, the relay is reacting, it's flipping over internally. And I'll show you how that looks on the diagrams here, okay? So this is the diagram for the circuit on here. And this is what you got to realize is everything is internal on here, including the fuel pump relay. It's non-serviceable. So it's what we're doing with the IDS there, okay, is we are turning on this driver inside the PCM. It's flicking over, sending the ground out, and the coil is turning on and flicking over the latch inside of the relay. And like we see right here, this is direct PCM power relay. As long as the PCM's powered up, there's any power coming in here. We're checking the ground by turning it on and off. So at this point, we need to check the output coming out of here. And we also need to check fuse 2.34, which is fuse 34 in the junction box, and make sure it has power. Now if it has power on both blades of the fuse on there, after that, everything is internal inside of here, including all the joints to the fuel pump relay. At that point, we should have power coming out this circuit right here. It's like a 12 gauge wire, 14 gauge it says, dark green, yellow. So we're gonna go ahead and check that out. Okay, as far as the fuel pump relay itself, like I said, it's internal, but what we can do is come up here to this 4-pin wire connector. It's very obvious, there's nothing else like it. And we can test this dark green and yellow wire for output on here. So we can turn the key either to the on position for that 2-second prime, or I can turn it on with the IDS and we should have power coming out of here. And what I like to do is load test the circuit, because it should be able to handle something like that, a window motor that's going to pull some amperage, and you can really test that relay inside of there. Now, if you're not getting anything from that dark green with the load tester, what you can do is use a voltmeter. Okay, use a regular voltmeter and see what kind of voltage you're getting out of there. And you can also use, that's around here somewhere. There it is, a test light. The thing is, a voltmeter puts no load on it, and these test lights, most of them are LED nowadays. This one's an incandescent, it's old school, and it puts a light load on it, but it does not pull load like that thing does, and like the fuel pump itself will pull. So this is a closer match to the fuel pump draw, I guess you could say. So again, it's this connector right here, that dark green and yellow. Okay, so you go ahead and you just test that whenever the power is onto it, when the key is turned on for those 2 seconds like that. Okay, so what I have is a long test lead that goes to the battery, so I get a known reference ground. And I already tested this test lead. It's the most important part of testing something like this. It's going to cost hundreds of dollars. You want to make sure that you test your test equipment first. So I tested that, everything's fine. It's my reference ground. See, I'm tapped in 5 different ways here, and we're going to go ahead and test it with the voltmeter first, and then I'll show you the test light also. Okay, so I'm a one-man show here, so I have the IDS turning on the fuel pump relay for me, and we're simply going to back probe this circuit. It's a little hard being on screen here, but there's definitely the other part of the metal terminal back inside of there, and it's very easy to get to. There's no weather-packed seal on there because it's inside the vehicle, so you can make sure that you're getting contact, and you can see we have, you know, barely anything coming out of there, and the fuel pump relay is on. Now again, same test with something that'll pull a little bit of a draw. Let me get up in here. Deep inside of there, move it around a little bit, and I see nothing on the test light on there. Now the next thing, like I said, is to test that fuse right there, the 20 ampere, and make sure that it's fine. And that was fine in this vehicle. So at this point, is it internal or is it external? Well, what we're gonna do is you can pull this out, and there's nothing else on this that's critical. Okay, it's like I don't know, power windows or something like that. I don't know. What we're gonna do, since this, where's it at? This green and yellow wire right here goes back straight to the fuel pump. What we're going to do is we're going to take our long test leads from the battery at the positive, and we're going to put it right into here, and we're going to turn on that fuel pump manually. Now what that does is it tests the circuitry from this point all the way back to the fuel pump. The ground's back there, everything, the fuel pump, the engine, the PCM powering up, all that good stuff. It tests everything all at once. Everything else we did here with testing the output from here, which is coming from the internal fuel pump relay, is testing to make sure that this, you know, control box, the smart junction box, has actually failed. So we're verifying that. Now it's time to test the rest of the vehicle, now that we know this part has failed. And then we're going to do one final test on here. I'm going to show you that's really going to verify internally this has failed. Okay, so right here you can see I have my my power coming directly from the battery up and over, and I plugged it into that green and yellow wire, and that's providing 12 volts all the way back to the pump. And don't worry about burning up the pump, because this system on this truck has a mechanical returnless system, so it can never burn up the pump. It just runs continuous at a full duty cycle on there. So let's go ahead and try to start the vehicle. Okay, let's cycle the key for the heck of it and start her up. Now with it running, you can tell the whole truck is operable. I mean, the fuel pump, the wires, the engine, everything is good to go. There's no more questioning it. Not only that, the rest of the relays for the PCM power relay and everything inside these boxes is being verified right now to work. So this is a good little test to do. And you can also, just to verify, I mean, you got disconnected from the power source from the internal fuel pump relay at this point. It's disconnected. But what you can do is disconnect the wire from it. Now, you can hear it's still running. The reason being is because the residual pressure in there at a low idle, they can run without high fuel pressure for a while. So there it goes, it's dying out. Okay, one last test we're gonna do to verify internally there is a problem. Now I know the rest of the fuse box is good to go. It's got power, 12 volts, plenty of amperage coming in. So there's no issues coming into the box, it's what's coming out. So we know we have 12 volts. So when that relay turns on, we should have 12 volts coming out of that pin on there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead with our voltmeter and we're going to turn on the fuel pump relay. You're gonna have to do it by turning the key on. I'm gonna use the IDS and we are going to test for voltage coming out of there. Okay, here we go. We have the ground, our reference ground switched over at the battery. So we have ground. And just to verify our test equipment, let's go ahead and test anything on here. Okay, we got a fuse down here, we got 12 volts, keys on, and the IDS is turning on the fuel pump relay for us. You're gonna have to turn on the key for that 2-second prime to go ahead and do this test on here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and test that bottom left circuit on there, that pin on there. Make sure you only touch that pin, and we're going to test it for voltage. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna read it on there. Fuel pump is on. Hopefully I can do this on camera. Okay, we're on there. And right there, 6.88 volts with no load on it. That right there tells you that the fuel pump relay contacts most likely burnt inside of there. The relay side works, but the contacts, they burn up after a while in there. Now the one other indicator that you may get on these older vehicles instead of a 1233 would be PO232, and that's the fuel pump secondary circuit is high, which means it's open. And the reason being is after it comes out of the fuel pump relay, okay, there's the output lead. After that, it branches off and goes back to the PCM, and that's how the PCM monitors the fuel pump relay actually came on. So if it doesn't come on when it's commanded, this is what we'll set. This is another good indicator. Okay, just a real quick aside right here, real quick. You may have noticed I was using my black wire instead of my red wire for my positive leads inside of there for my reference power and voltage. I was using the same ground on there. And the reason being is, like I said, check your test equipment. The equipment, the leads, everything. Look at this. You know I take care of my stuff. You can see this is really nice and taken care of. It's not all beat up and chewed up and stuff like that and dirty. I wrap it up every day and hang it away. But over time, stuff like this does happen. We have a break right here past the lead on there, and guess what? If I just plug this thing in, I went inside there with my positive side over here. Where's it at? Right there. And I started testing. I would get false positives for different components to be damaged or broken inside of there, you know, and I'd be misdiagnosing and misinforming the customer that's going to fix this vehicle in the end. So yeah, good idea to check your test leads. Very, very important. Now mine is showing 6 volts coming right out of that fuel pump relay, no load on it. A lot of times you have to put a load on to see that voltage drop on there, so you may get 12 volts or so on there. Now at that point it's too dangerous to get in there, put a load on it and everything else with the pins like that and crossing pins. So what you can do is plug that connector back in, cut that dark green and yellow wire, and or splice it. Just use a splicer and open the sheathing on there. Put a load on it, like the load tester there, and a voltmeter on there. So you'll start off with your 6 volts or your 12 volts, whatever you have, right? You put that load on it, and it drops out to like 0.023. It won't be able to handle the amperage draw of the pump. when you have the key on, engine off, and it's 12 volts, let's say, and then you put a load on like that, nothing else is going, the voltage should only drop a volt maybe half a volt with just the fuel pump coming on like that. It should not drop down to 0.023 or 1 volt or 2 volts or 3 volts. It's not right. Whereas this one's a lot easier to tell. With no load on it, has 6 volts coming out. It's not going to be able to even test, light a test light, as you saw, and it's not going to show much voltage on the voltmeter. What was it, 0.023? It's nothing. So yes, this is an internal fuel pump relay failure on this truck. So that's about it. I know it's kind of shaky, it's kind of down deep inside of here, but I have not covered this, so hopefully I covered it good enough. The shots, the angles, clarity was good enough, and we can help you guys diagnose exactly what's going on in the truck so we can get back up and running and you can start enjoying it once again.